Hi everyone. It's good to be back. Been away for well, nearly a year now. Apologies for that. Some health issues. Those that know, boys, get your prostate sorted, get it checked. So, welcome back to Between the Grooves, the album collection. I thought I'd start off coming back with a dive into just some of the debut albums that I have in my collection. So let's dive straight in. I'm going to start off with a release in from 1987, one of the biggest selling debut albums of all time, certainly in the US. Absolute stonker of an album, all killer, no filler, came out like an absolute explosion into my life. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Surprisingly, it was actually a bit of a grow. It wasn't a big success initially. It kind of grew, and it was really probably the release of the song, sorry, Sweet Child of Mine, that really elevated it. This is just an absolute fantastic. I mean, talk about intent. You had five musicians that were absolutely at the top of the game. Axl Rose's voice was just incredible, and of course the guitar work of Slash, who's now really become in the echelons of Guitar Hero, etched into rock history. I went to see them in about 1987, 1988, I think it was, at the Monsters of Rock. You can hear all about that in my book Between the Grooves. I had to get a bit of a plug in there. And that performance for various reasons kind of goes down in history as well. This actual cover, this is the original cover that I have, and it was actually a band, or rather replaced quite quickly with this sort of the cross that you often see as the logo for Guns N' Roses. I might have that again, even upside down there actually. Don't know if I should blank it out or something. Maybe that'll happen. I'll get pulled off the airways for this controversial cover. Anyway, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Just absolutely phenomenal album. Finishing off there with Rocket Queen, one of the best endings to any album, and coming in with intent with Welcome to the Jungle. You got Night Train, you got Paradise City, My Michelle, which I absolutely adore, Sweet Child of Mine, obviously, and as I said, Rocket Queen. Anyway, there we go. Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. The next one, again, one of the best-selling albums ever in the US. Over 21 million copies of this sold. It won a Grammy. It was released in 1994, so a relatively new album for me. This is Crap Rear View Mirror by Hootie and the Blowfish. Lovely named band. This features the vocal talents of Darius Rucker, who's now sort of gone on to be one of the biggest selling country artists in the world at the moment. Just wonderful soulful voice. Just a really great sort of indie pop infused with country rock album. Got some absolutely beautiful songs on there, some absolute bangers on there. Became a massive fan of Hootie and Blowfish, and surprisingly, considering it, as I said, 21 million copies, the sort of interest in Hootie sort of really, tailed off really quickly after this. They released 4 or 5 albums after this, including one about 10 years ago when they kind of reformed. But the sort of the interest never really maintained for Hootie. But interestingly, as I say, Darius Rucker went on to become an even bigger seller as a solo artist. But I really love this album. It has a great tune called "Hold My Hands" on it, which I love. And the probably the biggest hit off of it was "Only Want to Be With You," which is a not that song. which is a song I've covered a few times actually in a number of bands I've been in. But check it out, Hooting the Blowfish, Crack Review, Mirror. Talking of fastest selling debut albums in Irish history this time, an album that blends sort of traditional Irish sounds with soul influences and pop. Reached number one in Ireland and in the UK. Just love going back to this album. Really, I still think an underrated album, an underrated band. Still touring. Hopefully, I might get tickets to see them this year. This is Hothouse Flowers with People. I seem to remember that the first time I saw Hothouse Flowers, they were on the Eurovision Song Contest, of all things. There was a number of years in the 90s where Ireland just kept on winning the Eurovision Song Contest. And it was, I think eventually they put in an absolute rubbish song just so they could lose, so they didn't have to host it. But between the sort of the voting and the bands, they brought on bands. Acts. They brought on Hootie. They brought on Hothouse Flowers, and I just thought their performance was absolutely astonishing. Lead singer going absolutely nuts, banging away at the piano, and I just love their sound really. Biggest hit on there, I think, is "Don't Go," but there's a beautiful song called "Hallelujah Jordan" on here. Ballad of Katie, which is again a beautiful song. But they've got "It'll Be Easy in the Morning," which is a wonderful sort of soul song. They went on to do one of the best covers I think I've ever heard, which is a cover of "I Can See Clearly Now," which is just brilliant. But it was on the follow-up album Home. But check this out, brilliant album, Hothouse Flowers, People. You will not regret it. This is a really important album for me. Came out in 1979, a pivotal album in the two-tone sort of ska revival in the UK. Probably helped define this, well, did, because it was their debut album, define this band's sort of sound. And this band, I'll give you a clue, it's probably the nuttiest of the albums that this band produced. I didn't own it straight away. It was actually owned by my brother Paul. But we absolutely fell in love with this band, fell in love with this album. I've been a lifelong fan all since. Considering their hair and most of the music I talk about might be a bit of a surprise, but there we go. Madness, One Step Beyond. Again, an album of absolute intent from this band. I just love Madness. I felt, to me they were just like a bunch of mates, like I had who got together. They were, they were each other's sort of support. They were, mates hanging out, having a laugh. There are serious songs. I mean, the absolutely fantastic, most underrated love song, My Girl. But you've also got the classics, Night Boat to Cairo, One Step Beyond. It's got Bed and Breakfast Man on here. It's got The Prince, which was a cover. One Step Beyond is actually a cover as well. But it's got some really odd little numbers like Mummy's Boy, which is the story of a guy that kind of still lives with his mum. You've got Land of Hope and Glory, which I always thought was a song about being in the cadets in the army or what have you, but apparently it's about kind of Borstal or something like that, like a boys' correctional school or what have you. And In the Middle of the Night, I think, is on here as well, yeah, which is about a guy who sneaks out in the night and steals underwear off of washing lines. Absolute madness. We all know Madness went on to do, hit after hit after hit, especially in the 80s. Still going strong. And I'm going to go and see them again live this year. Another possibly surprising album, one of the first albums that I actually owned. My brother brought it home. I think my older brother might have brought it home from the Navy. I think he might have had it on cassette, and I rushed out to buy this on album, on vinyl. It sounds absolutely amazing still to this day. It hasn't aged. It sounds so luscious, so beautiful. Produced by the legendary Trevor Horn, that went on to do Frankie Goes to Hollywood amongst others. This is ABC's The Lexicon of Love. Just love the design of it, love the drama of this album. You know, sweeping orchestral music along with electronic music. Wonderful lyrics, actually, really good lyric writing on this album as well. A great voice of Martin Fry. Probably the best known songs are Poison Arrow, possibly Tears Are Not Enough, The Look of Love, and one of my favourites, All of My Heart. Just absolutely love this album. Still sounds amazing. A lush, beautiful, well conceived album. They did, make many albums after Lexington, but nothing really kind of reached quite what this showed as their potential in my view. Again, you can still see ABC out on the road. Great album. Another very important album for me. Again, another cornerstone album, but this time of the neo-progressive rock movement, the kind of resurgence of progressive rock. It kind of gave a jolt of adrenaline into the dying arm of progressive music in the 80s, along with other bands, but this is probably the best or the most well-known band of that kind of period and the most influential of that period. Marillions' Script for a Jester's Tear. Just adore this album. I adore Marillion, especially Fish period. And just as an aside note, lead singer Fish's solo album I nearly thought of bringing out as a debut because it's such a strong album, Vigil in the Wilderness of Mirrors. But I may do a special on singers from bands doing solo albums or something maybe. But Script for Jester's Tear, yeah, fantastic, great album. Starts the Script for Jester's Tear, The Web, Garden Party, Forgotten Sons, Chelsea Monday. It kind of sort of sums up that kind of teenage angst, or that kind of living in a bedsitter and yearning for the unacquainted love and what have you. Again, lyrically, so good. I mean, I was just astonished when I heard this album. Fisher's lyrics are really a poet, really. As I said, it kind of marked the kind of debut of Fish as well, and very theatrical, very dramatic. And I think, as I say, I kind of, stayed with Fish when Fish left Marillion, and I especially love the Marillion with Fish period. I don't, I like some of the stuff that they did post Fish with Steve Hogarth, but I feel it lost the drama, and that's what I really loved about the early Marillion songs. Okay, heavily influenced by what came before, often accused of being, a poor man's Genesis, but I think they're a band in their own right with absolutely their own sound. So nearly finishing off, just a couple more. This one is actually 2024, so a very recent album for me. One BBC Sounds poll just before it was released, actually. Dramatic, baroque pop, indie, hook style sort of music, all girl band. This is The Last Dinner Party, Prelude to Ecstasy. Again, just a really beautiful album, really nicely put together, very dramatic, quirky as well. I saw them perform. I didn't go to Glastonbury, but I saw them on the TV with their coverage, and yeah, I just thought they were fantastic. Really kind of drew me in. Great album. It sort of generated a buzz quite quickly, I think, after that sort of Glastonbury performance, and I've gone on to do another great second album. But the debut here, Prelude to Ecstasy, is absolutely fantastic. Check it out. I'm going to finish off with an album released in 1977, and it's arguably not actually a debut, because this artist actually did produce an album before this with as a kind of as a duo with someone called Stoney, but this is conceptually the birth, really, of this sound and this guy's career, along with his writing partner Jim Steinman. This is a 1977 release, the year of punk. just to completely fly in the face of what was going on, Meatloaf's Better Hell. I always describe to people when I first heard this album, I dropped it was actually on cassette. I pushed play and my world exploded. The sound was huge. It was epic. It's like, what is this? I remember playing it to my son Sam when he was really young, and he was literally went nuts. He was running around the room, bouncing off the walls. Such an amazingly sounding album, written by the legendary Jim Steinman. Very sort of theatrical, Wagner style, dramatic album. Rejected multiple times before it became one of the longest lasting hit albums of all time. It's kind of been in the charts, well, maybe not recently, but it was in the charts for absolutely, well, decades really. Produced by Ted Rundgren as well, who should get credit as well for making this such an amazing album. But of course, really all centered around Meatloaf's incredible voice. I mean, he never really bettered it. He did some great stuff. Certainly, he had issues. He kind of lost his voice, and when he came back with Dead Ringer, it was a strong album, but not as strong as this. He never really bested this. He did some great stuff, but never really bested it. One of my favourite albums of all time. As I say, I'll finish with it because it's technically not a debut album, because it was the album Meatloaf and Stoney that kind of came before. Nothing like this, but this is really the birth of that sound in this guy's career, really, and certainly Jim Steinman's as well. Meatloaf's Better Hell. So I hope you enjoyed the return to Between the Grooves, the vinyl collection. I'll try and keep up with it. I'll see you soon, and as always, be good, be kind, be truthful, and be free.